NKCS Art. Alright, once you make your mixed up animal from Switch Zoo and you've saved it in your photos, open up your sketchbook, go to that picture icon at the top and upload your photo. Make it really big because this is the subject of your picture. The next thing you're going to want to do is click on that layer and lower the opacity just a little bit so that when we trace it you can see your lines better. So I'm just going to kind of lower it, and then I'm going to hit that plus sign and add a layer on top. Now that blue line that you see switching back and forth, you don't want it around your picture, you want it around that new blank page so that you're drawing on that page so that when we get rid of the other picture later, your tracing will still be left. It won't be attached to that picture. It's a very important step because if you're not drawing on a different paper than the one with like your animal on it, then you will not be able to keep your drawing and you'll have to try again. So I've got my technical pen or my Sharpie tool and in black, and I'm going to zoom in because some of these things are going to be very tiny, and when you zoom in it's a lot easier to trace these little tiny features. And what I'm doing is I'm tracing all the details of the bird. So I traced his head thing first and then his hair. And then where all these different sections of color are, I'm going to want to trace those and outline them so that I can fill them in with some nice color later. So I'm going to just kind of go back and just follow my lines around. Again, trace the different features of the animal, the different details, because the more details you have, the better your animal is going to look when we go to color it in. With those feathers, I'm just kind of, if you make a mistake, just use that back arrow and it gets rid of it. Don't use an eraser, it'll kind of mess it up a little bit. And then when you do this, make sure you touch your lines together. If your lines aren't touched, and I'll show you later in the photo, then it's going to mess up your color. So always make sure, zoom in and see if your lines are touching when you're drawing. Notice my tracing over on the right hand side is on that new page. It's not attached to my bird. That's exactly what you want. You want to be able to see your tracing as a new page. So when we're done, we can just delete that bird page and be left with your drawing. So I'm going back, adding some details. When I color them in, I think I'll add my zebra stripes then later. And let me go ahead and trace my fish tail. And again, I'm just kind of using jaggedy edges where there's like feathers or just like his hair, just to kind of make it look like it has some texture. Now there's some options when you go to color this in. You can use this paint bucket tool, and when you click in there, that's what happens when your lines don't touch. So let me go fix my line real fast. I'm going to go back and get black and get my technical pen, and I'm going to make those lines touch. So now when I go to my paint bucket tool, I can fill it in with gray. There's another way that you can color in your animal. It's a little bit harder. You can try it if you'd like. It's that tool up at the top with some dashed lines around it and a little arrow. If you click on that, there's a magic wand tool that you can click on. On the tolerance, you might have to adjust that depending on how much of it is highlighting. But if I click on the magic wand tool, and then I go down and click in my elephant's body, then you will notice there's like a little, you can't really see it on my screen too well, but there's like a little line around it with little tiny dashes, allowing me to only color in the elephant with my watercolor brush and not get outside the lines. So you can kind of make it look watercolor into some shading that way if you want to. And then when you don't want the magic wand tool, just click out onto the gray area and it'll get rid of it. But for this purpose, since that will take a little while to do, I'm just going to fill it in solid color. You can do it either way, whatever your preference is. So I'm going to go back and fill in my bird and make sure I got my solid colors. And you can always add detail and some shading with the solid colors too by going back and just coloring over it, or adding some different lines like in his hair and stuff to kind of give the effect that it's more like hair. When you do this, make sure you fill in their eyeball too, because next week when we make a habitat for him, we don't want the habitat to show through his eyeball. So I'm going to go back and fill that in with white real fast. Anything that's not filled in will be see-through, so I want to make sure I fill in my whole animal. Let me get the color of his tail and fill that in. And then there's a leg down here and some hooves that I need to fill in on my animal. So let me go ahead and do that real fast. And then I'm just going to go back in and add some different details to him like his zebra stripes. I'm just going to use my technical pen for that. You can always use like texture tools, whatever you want to try on your animal, because if you try it and you don't like it, you can always do the back arrow and then try something different. So let me see, I'm just going to go in and draw my little zebra stripes on my animal. And if I took my time, or if I had more time, I could do even more details and more shading. But I'm just doing my animal kind of fast so that you can kind of get the point of what we're doing and be able to do it yourself and make your own artwork. So I think for the fishtail, I'm going to get the color with my color dropper and make it a little bit darker. Maybe make some lines in there so it has a little bit of texture and looks more like a fishtail. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with his hair, just to kind of give it my back arrow there, just to kind of make it look a little bit more like hair. I could even do it with the feathers, add whatever you want to your animal to make it look even better. The more details you add, the more interesting your creature is going to be. So let me add this in. Once you're all done with your creature, what you're going to do is you're going to save it for next week. And next week we're going to create a habitat for our animal. So go up to those 3 lines at the top, go to your gallery and save, and we will finish it up next week.